I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What do you mean, calm it down? It's a fight. Referees telling two fighters who want to fight to calm it down. He should calm down.
I saw he's like a clown in his show, man. He's not your guy.
Because Tyson Fury's back, and all you motherfuckers are under attack. Look, Eddie Hearn can say all what he likes. Who gives a shit what Eddie Hearn says? It's garbage.
Are you off your tits? Have you been smoking something?
Can you let me retire and be happy? Please, just please.
Bombs away from the Bronx Bomber!
Water! Let's go, baby! Let's go! I'm through. They put somebody else up and give me an interview.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
You never give me a fair shake. HBO needs to fire you. You don't know shit about boxing. You ain't shit. You not shit. I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
No, you won the fight.
OMG. I am so excited.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? Another bi-weekly edition of the show. Live on YouTube, obviously podcast form on all forms of podcasts. You can find them on Spotify, Apple, all that fun stuff. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. And we have a pretty loaded show today, surprisingly, in a pandemic world where there's not much going on. In the boxing that we do have going on, it's not getting high viewership, and they're not good fights, which we're going to get to later on the show. But we do have a lot to get to on this show. We have the whole Daniel Kinahan scandal resurfacing again because it is spreading like wildfire now with major outlets like CNN picking it up. So we're going to have to delve back into that scandal when it comes to the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight. And speaking of that fight, we're going to delve back into that deal and whether or not it's going to actually take place when they say it's going to take place, because WBO have now come in. We have Dillian Whyte's lawsuit, a bunch to get in when it comes to that fight. Particular matchups have been announced or at least flirted with. Regis Prograis versus Chris Algieri is being talked about on a DAZN card. We obviously have the Jamal James Thomas Delorme fight that was scheduled, I think, in like March, and then obviously the pandemic hit. That has been now rescheduled for a Fox card. We're going to dive back into that fight and discuss it. Plus a lot of people popping for either coronavirus or substances and then getting off because it was due to unprotected sex. A lot to get into on today's show, surprisingly, from all over the place. But without further ado, let me get to my co-host on today's show, Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you, man?
Good. It's good to be back. A lot to get into. On the viewership numbers, man, they're bad. Like, I knew they wouldn't be great, especially the second show after the Stevenson, but it was half the Stevenson number. The peak was about half of what Stevenson peaked at. It's like, wow. I didn't know if it was do better or worse because people knew it was on or whatever. Wow. Were you expecting this to be this bad? It's bad. It's really bad. Yeah. I mean, the fights aren't good.
I expected the Shakur fight to do a little more. We're obviously going to talk about that later on in the show, but I expected that fight in particular to do a better peak than what it did. Even though the peak isn't too bad, but the average is still bad.
The average is terrible, but I can understand the average because the card is so long and the fights were so bad. I thought it would have peaked higher.
Good point. I understand.
Yeah, there's 5 fights on, and the first 4 fights you hadn't heard of the guy. And then Shakur's fighting. No, but I thought Shakur would have peaked closer to maybe not 1 million, but high 8s or 900,000. 609, and then an average of 350, 340. And then the other one was like 340.
We'll get into it.
But
let's first get into the major fight, or at least the major discussion that's happening in the boxing world right now. We're going to first just talk about the in-ring, even though it's not really in-ring, the in-ring factors of the AJ Fury deal, because like we talked about in the last show, there's some aspects to the industry, how boxing matches come to be, that lead me, and at least in the last show, to thinking that summer showdown for the first fight and a rematch in the same year is just not possible, not likely. Now there are forces within the industry that, like I've sort of predicted, that have come out and said, no, you're probably right, Matt. It's not going to happen like they said they are. WBA come out really hard, surprisingly. President Francisco I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name. Apologies. He is basically downplaying this, saying that both AJ and Fury have to fight their respective mandatories before the fight, Usyk and Dillian Whyte, respectively. So I'm not too shocked by this. I'm a little bit shocked that that's the WBO. Adding to this, Tyson Fury said that he might drop the WBC title and also mention franchise belts as well. Dillian Whyte is now taking legal action against the WBC. And before we get into the Daniel Kinahan stuff, let's just talk about these issues with the fight and the deal, let's say. Gary, thoughts on first the WBO situation and then Dillian Whyte taking legal action, according to the WBC, confirming it to Sky Sports against themselves, against the WBC. Thoughts on both things?
Remind me about that Dillian Whyte because I want to touch on Usyk first, the WBO. But we talked about the WBC in terms of Jamal Charlo, if that was possible, and you sent me over you sent me an email of the actual WBC paperwork where it seems like they can get away with anything. But let's get back. Now I want to talk about Usyk first. The WBO has this rule where if you move up, you get to fight the champion at the new weight class. He moved up a while ago. He fought back in October against Chaz Witherspoon, and he's waiting for his chance. I mean, he deserves it. Like, that's their rule. If these guys don't want to fight Usyk, then you have to vacate the belt. If you want to be undisputed, then you have to take these fights. That's why I said that Joshua Fury will happen once in 2021. It definitely ain't going to happen twice. It's not going to happen twice. It's just too much to get involved. It could happen twice in the history of boxing. You know, it could happen 2-3 years from now, but it's not going to happen
twice in a 12-month calendar, fiscal year. Yes, I think that's possible. It's possible.
Maybe. I mean, they would probably have to vacate. One of the guys would probably have to vacate a belt. Well, we don't have one champ at that point, right? So they both wouldn't have to take mandatories. Twice in a 12-month span, still going to be rough. It's possible, but that's still rough.
Quickly, Santiago with the super chat saying the only good fight for the entire week was the Adam Lopez versus Louis Correa fight. I don't remember that fight, to be honest. I watched both cards. I can't tell you what happened on either card except for the short fight.
It was all action. It was like watching a Texas Tech game back from the early 2000s, which all offense and no one blocked a shot, no one moved their head, no one parried a jab. It was like both guys just landed at will. I mean, it was high action, high offense, but those guys aren't future world champs. That's all I'm saying.
Adam Lopez being the guy that took the fight on late notice last year, right? The fight we were talking about last show, right? That whole fiasco. That's Adam. That same Adam, right? Yeah.
He fought well. He dropped Valdez and was right in, and then did he get dropped or just rocked? And they stopped it pretty much out of nowhere, and it was like that was weird.
Yeah. Shout out to Adam Lopez.
Yeah, good guy, tough fighter, right? Comes from a fighting family, just not that great.
But digressing, do you think the promoters or whoever's involved with the Joshua Fury deal and sort of deal making, let's say, do you think they were going to be able to bypass at least the WBO mandatory?
That depends. If Fury wins, yes, right? Because Bob Arum, right.
WBO, yes.
Which I expect Fury to win. I think Fury.
Wait, not Fury. You mean Pulev?
Pulev. Yeah. If Pulev wins, which he won't, I that could happen, right? I think that he could vacate the belt. I really think that's a possibility. I think,
Bob Arum did that.
There's so much money in that fight. Like, okay, I want to be undisputed. Or he could do like Mayweather did. When Mayweather took Pacquiao's WBO belt, he just vacated it right away. And then they fought. I forgot who fought for it immediately after that. I think it was Pacquiao again, maybe. But he just relinquished it as soon as he won it. He could do something like that. So he's technically undisputed when he wins it, and then it's just vacated as soon as he wins.
But this would mean those fights before AJ Fury. So Fury's not getting this belt at all. And it's if we're talking about this, right? If we're talking about AJ, we're talking about Pulev, we're talking about Fury.
Let me. I didn't really reference what I'm saying. What if Fury came out like Mayweather did and said, "I'll fight for you, but I'll pay the sanctions fees, but then I'll vacate it, so then you guys can have the number 1 and number 2 challenger fight for it."
Yeah, but I don't think Mayweather announced that beforehand. That was something he did, and then the WWE was pissed about.
Okay, because I remember I figured he had to know Because
No. I don't think that was something that they knew about. From what I remember, that was more of a
5 years ago, I don't remember. Yeah.
And it wasn't that great of a fight, so let's be honest.
But you defend the fight. You say it's not as bad as it gets remembered.
It's not as bad, but it's still not a good fight.
Better fight, Mayweather De La Hoya or Mayweather Pacquiao?
That's not even a question. Mayweather De La Hoya.
Okay.
Mayweather De La Hoya is one of those underrated fights. I'll go on the record right there. Seems like Mayweather Miguel Cotto. Like I enjoy that.
Mayweather Cotto was a good fight. I had it even after 8, and then I had Floyd sweep the last 4 rounds. But Mayweather's in some trouble here.
Yeah,
because he had to go to jail right after that fight, so maybe that was in his head. Like Cotto might be the guy that picks him up, and then Floyd dominated the last 4 rounds.
But digressing back to Usyk, WO, and then obviously with Dillian Whyte and WC, I do think that we will have one of these mandatories be forced. And I don't know which one. I think there's a good argument for Dillian Whyte and his legal battle. I mean, I do think you can see an Eddie Hearn and the might of Sky Sports kind of push this lawsuit and be behind it, because there'd be a way for their guy to collect a belt before, or at least collect a version of a belt. Let me clarify that, because franchise belts I think are 100% likely here. And I mean 100% likely here specifically. I mean that term literally. Like, I do think we're going to get a franchise belt in the next 12 months with the WBC. I think we're going to get a way of Dillian Whyte collecting a Devin Haney-like situation here, a Jamal Charlo-like situation here, and get a belt. And he's going to be suing the WBC the whole time, but it'd be a way of Eddie Hearn getting his guy a belt, and that will 100% happen. That's my prediction. Usyk with the WBO, I do think that's a weird situation, because both guys there are, in my theory, going to be Matchroom fighters, in theory, right? You have Usyk, who's co-promoted by Matchroom, and you have AJ, who I think is going to beat Pulev, let's be honest here. You have both Matchroom fighters. Does Eddie try to make that fight in the meantime? And then you have, like we talked about, an AJ Fury fight happening in the fall of 2021. That seems quite possible. Because I think if one of these mandatories gets forced, then the likelihood of the other being forced is possible, because what else is the person going to do? Maybe a Wilder comes in here, maybe a Joseph Parker, Andy Ruiz, somebody that has some cachet and is a little bit of a drawing power. But other than those guys, I don't see that happening, because none of them are kind of going to be getting wins in the next 12 months, in my opinion, except for maybe Parker, but he's been fighting nobodies. So I see this deal, the AJ Fury fight, not happening. This 2-fight deal that's in the summer and the fall of 2021, that's not happening. And largely because of these mandatories. Like, it's just how it happens. The only other way you get these guys taking the fight is if some belts get vacated. And that was kind of going to happen with, obviously, the rematch of Klitschko Fury way back in the day, but that's a long time ago. I don't think that happens again here.
And I'm usually mad at the mandatories, because usually the mandatories are ridiculous. Carlos Ocampo, Steak Boots fights, right? But these are reasonable. Usyk and Dillian Whyte. We'll get to that in a little bit, I guess. He's got considerable beef, man. Dillian Whyte. The fact that Dillian Whyte hasn't gotten a title shot yet, I put completely and 100% Eddie Hearn. Unless he doesn't think AJ can beat Dillian Whyte, and he'd rather have AJ as his champ than Dillian Whyte. But I mean, that's just theory.
I would have to know more about AJ and White's respective management to maybe make that determination if it's really on Eddie or if it's on one of their managers, because they were in negotiation and it came down to money, and there's no reason the money should have been an issue. It's a huge fight. It's a huge fight domestically, and honestly, kind of a big fight still in the U.S. It's still a major heavyweight fight, regardless of it just being a UK versus UK showdown.
You can sell Dillian Whyte. He's got the personality and he's got the power. Heavyweights, knockouts sell heavyweights, right? I mean, that guy's got tremendous power. You can sell him as a star. At least
he's been a
star.
He's been a great. I would, since we talked about Miguel Cotto earlier, I compared him to Miguel Cotto again. Or not again, but just make that comparison again. Miguel Cotto was one of the best middle class pay-per-view draws of 2005 to 2015, right? That decade. He was a great B-level pay-per-view draw. And I mean B-level, not in a disparaging way at all. He was a guy that could routinely pull in 200,000 to 400,000 and make money, right? Not be a star on his own as an A-side, but make money. Dillian Whyte does that in the UK. And his numbers have shown that time and time again that he's been a relatively decent draw pay-per-view-wise as an A-side, let alone the B-side to AJ again in a rematch when they fought before either one of them had a title.
Yeah, Cotto, and I always, this is the test. Call up your local sports talk radio show and ask them if they know who Miguel Cotto is. They know who he is, right?
Yeah, they do.
That means he's a star, right? Not a boxing star. It means he's a sports star. People, they know who he is. And yeah, Dillian Whyte's got that appeal in the UK and in the US. Again, you can, if you make a 30-second commercial of all his knockouts, you're going to sell some pay-per-views.
I think it would be a good DAZN fight, even though they're focused on the US. It would be in the UK, presumably. I wouldn't assume they put AJ Dillian Whyte in MSG, like you say, the Mecca boxing. It would be in Wembley. It would be in a big stadium if they can in the UK whenever, obviously, the pandemic is over with. So, but regardless, I still think it's a sellable fight internationally. It's two big heavyweights with knockout power that talk a lot of shit when they're next to each other. It sells. And again, you have the first fight, which was a really good fight that you can play in the promo itself. This does 1 million pay-per-view buys easy in the UK. Like, this is not even without a question. This might even be close to breaking records in UK pay-per-view. Like, that wouldn't be out of the question. If AJ Andy Ruiz, the rematch, beat the pay-per-view record in the UK, I'm assuming that this rematch could beat that as well.
And it does well for the DAZN USA too, right? Because that's a fight that people would pick up the subscription for, right? Like that, the people who dropped it because they haven't had sports in 3 months would pick it back up to watch that fight. $20, and then maybe you get them to keep it. You got to keep giving them good content.
But regardless, that fight never happened for money issues. But digressing, about the lawsuit or legal action, it's not really a lawsuit yet per se, but the WBC did confirm to Sky Sports that Dillian Whyte has taken legal action against them. Thoughts on this, Gary? Because we know that very few independent fighter lawsuits against sanctioning bodies have been successful. The last time I can really remember a sanctioning body being taken to task was the IBF, and that took the full might of the FBI to do that.
And that was a difference. That was corruption.
Yeah, Bob Arum came out against the IBF. When you have one of the biggest promoters snitching on the own industry, it's just different. That's not really happening here per se. But thoughts on this lawsuit?
Which I don't understand how Bob Arum got no punishment for that. He admitted to paying people off, but whatever. Okay. I talked to you when I was still Gary the Caller, right? About why Jamal Charlo doesn't sue the WBC for a Canelo fight. And you said, and I couldn't find it. I was looking for it for about an hour. The email that you sent me that said right at the top that like it's only applicable if the WBC wants it. I forget the verbiage, right? But it's basically like it's on the WBC's time frame, right?
The WBC Supreme Council, I think that's the right terminology, because every sanctioned body is different. But they all relatively have this same sort of wording in their rules and regulation, that they can basically have a council vote to go against any rule that they have within their rules and regulation. So let's say Dillian Whyte is a mandatory here. He wants to force his hand. If they keep having a majority vote saying, sorry, Dillian Whyte, we're going to have these other fights be ordered, not your mandatory be called up, then they can technically do that from a rules and regulation standpoint because they wrote it into the rules that they can do that. So it's, again, relatively at the top of the fucking page on like when you get into the actual like rules and all the different nitty and gritty stuff. It's at the very top for a reason. I do not see Dillian Whyte having a easy case here, to be quite honest.
Which is why, right? Like if it were easy, everyone would do it, right? Like most promoters are lawyers, most managers are lawyers, or at least have lawyers on hand. Like they would just hire their lawyer. The lawyer would probably look at when you said to me, I couldn't believe any smart lawyer would sign that, right? Because like, what does a mandatory mean? It's not mandatory. It's optional to WBC whenever they want to do it, right? It's not mandatory at all. Like it's mandatory in name only.
Yeah.
That's why it's right at the top, right? It's like there's no getting around it. I don't think he's going to have any. I wish him luck, and he deserves a title shot. I think he loses it one-sided, but he deserves it. He's done everything in his power to get that shot. Give him the title fight, and look, if he lands a big shot, he has the power to win. But I don't see that happening. But he definitely deserves a shot, and kudos to him, right? Like enough waiting. Like let's do this now. I just don't think like the way that the verbiage is in that contract. I don't think he's going to have any luck from a legal perspective.
You would almost wish that like there was because it really is in terms of the heavyweight division at least. For this argument, I'm not consider PBC a promotion. We can if we want to have that argument for right now. It feels like it's a top rank in matchroom race right now for the heavyweight division. And you have, Wilder and Ruiz with Al Heyman. And, they're doing quite a lot of good work in the heavyweight division, but they're not aggressively going after conquering the division per se. You have Wilder trying to do it. Andy Ruiz kind of lucked into a position, but it's not like a promotional mandate, it seems, that we're going to come in here to this division and take over. It's been clear ever since Bob Arum signed Tyson Fury, they've been trying to go after this division. It's been very clear ever since the rise of AJ that Matchroom has tried to consolidate the heavyweight division. They try to sign on every big heavyweight you can think of, and they've been mostly successful with doing that. Same with Top Rank. So it makes me almost wish that Dillian Whyte would have like another independent party to go to that's actually having his side in these negotiations. Because that's when it comes down to like how at fault is Eddie Hearn for not getting him a title fight when one of the title fights is an in-house promotional fight. And it's a sellable fight. So the argument of like it doesn't make money can't be used. The argument of it's not a good fight can't be used. The argument of he hasn't earned it can't be used because he has been a mandatory for AJ's belt before. Like these are all things that are really not excuses for this case.
Do you think that Eddie Hearn views Dillian Whyte as too big a threat and that Dillian Whyte could win and Dillian Whyte's just not nearly as marketable as heavyweight champion as Anthony Joshua is?
Yes. And I think that's a gross simplification of it, but I do think that's what he thinks. And I think in his mind, it's a gross simplification is how I should put it. Because Dillian Whyte, obviously, I don't think he's going to be the brand ambassador that AJ is to like any brand in the world. Like AJ was literally created out of a lab somewhere. Let's just be honest about it. Dillian Whyte is not that. However, he is 100% a sellable drawing star right now, especially in the UK. So is it possible if Whyte were to come in here and beat AJ, could you turn him into a guy that can maybe do $1 million as an A-side in the UK in terms of pay-per-view buys? That's possible. That's not out of the question. It's Dillian Whyte, especially with the win against AJ. That's absolutely possible. But I think in his mind, that's not as likely. So I want to control my golden goose as much as possible, steer him to the biggest fight as much as possible without taking any real hard steps right now, because Pulev isn't that. And I'll be honest, even like an Usyk right now, I would not consider as much of a threat as Dillian Whyte to AJ. I'm just going to be honest about it.
Who would you pick? You'd pick Joshua to beat Dillian Whyte again in a rematch?
I'd pick AJ against both of them, yes. I think Dillian Whyte gives him the tougher matchup.
I think Usyk beats him 120 to 108.
I know you do. You think Usyk is going to conquer the division. He got touched up by Chaz Witherspoon. But digressing, okay. Dillian Whyte's legal case, like you said, all applause to him, all credit to him. I think more fighters should challenge the status quo of this industry and the system. But it's very hard to do it when you're just by yourself. I think he is going to be kind of by himself in this legal battle. Sorry. We do need massive reform in this sport. I don't think it's going to come from this legal case, though.
I wish him luck, though. I hope. And then it'll force other mandatory. If he wins, it'll set a precedent. There'll be a court case, and then maybe we'll get. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing because there's some bad mandatories, but yeah, I hope he wins it because it'll set a precedent, and there'll be a court case on record where look, this guy sued and he got his title shot. And
I wonder how the legal case is going to go down since Dillian Whyte's in the UK. I think WBC is incorporated not in the US. I don't
It's
think
in Mexico, isn't it, WBC?
I want to say so. So I'm curious, like, how this case will go down, because it's very different than like I've seen a lot of fighters sue state commissions. That's quite common, right? Or at least try to. And that makes a lot of sense because most of them are U.S. fighters suing U.S. entities and institutions. Like it makes just a lot more feasible sense. I wonder how this is going to go down. But speaking of boxing needing reform, let's talk about how boxing still has, drug leaders and mafia bosses in, basic de facto charge of the sport and big fights. Because as we've been talking about for several shows now, the Daniel Kinahan scandal, as I'm just going to plainly call it, is seemingly catching fire all over the place. RTE, which is one of the biggest Irish news outlets, is reporting that I'm going to try to pronounce this word. What it means is the Prime Minister of Ireland, but the Taoiseach, which just means the Prime Minister of Ireland, has contacted the UAE over Daniel Kinahan's activities. And on top of this, also FBI and DEA in the US and also UK authorities have been called on to help snare Daniel Kinahan, as the Times report. I'm also going to say this, that the article by a good friend of the show, Alan Dawson, over at The Insider, how Daniel Kinahan, a suspected 1.1 billion Irish gang lord, suddenly became the broker of boxing's biggest clash in years, is a fantastic article. I'm not saying that just because he shouted out the show privately to me and we had a conversation, but also because the article is 100% the best in-depth piece I've read on this topic. I think it is it's a great bookend on sort of what you need to know about this case and what you need to know about the scandal and how this has started. Go read this article. But on top of it, CNN is now talking about this with Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua. The Irish government concerned by involvement of, quote, organized crime figure, end quote, in deal. And as we were talking about, I think on the last show, about the lack of U.S. media and the virtual, blackout on this topic. But now we have CNN, one of the largest news outlets in the U.S. and in the world, talking about it. Gary, thoughts on this scandal? I know I've been a little more vocal about it than everyone here for obvious reasons. But thoughts on this seemingly catching fire as a news story, and on top of that, the authorities seemingly. Oh, did I freeze up?
Yeah, you're frozen.
But you can hear me, right?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
So I'm almost at the point now where it's become like a joke to me, right? We have a gang leader, a drug cartel leader here involved in the biggest fight in boxing, and it's finally getting some attention now. But it's like, is it at the point where any publicity is good publicity? Maybe it's a sideshow or a circus now, and people will tune in, right? But like, how is this guy involved in boxing at any level, especially at the highest level, the biggest fight that can be made in the sport, has this guy attached to it? I'm glad it's getting attention and someone's looking at it, but like, I'm just thinking this is going to add to the talking points that boxing is a joke and boxing is run by dirty insiders. Like, it doesn't help, but it does need to be addressed.
Absolutely. I was thinking about writing an article about why there's a lack of real media coverage on this within our industry. I think it's very obvious that we're seeing a lot of the coverage be from mainstream outlets that actually cover like major crime news, right? Like, that's why we're seeing this, right? There's a reason we're not seeing this within our own industry as much. Like, there's a reason why like Jake Donovan is like one of the only guys on an actual just pure boxing outlet talking about this. Like, there's a reason, and there's probably a reason that we all can assume, but I do want to write an article about that more in depth, just to get my thoughts out and rant about it, because it's ridiculous. Like, it's disgusting to sort of like highlight what I mean by this. MTK, which was originally MGM Marbella, which was founded by Daniel Kinahan, and Matthew Macklin. Now, obviously, having to deal with ESPN and Top Rank. Guess what? They just announced their next show in July 18th in Kazakhstan. And don't be surprised, guys. Obviously, IFL being basically owned by MTK, they're showing it worldwide. There's a reason why the biggest UK YouTuber, Kugan Cassius, is not talking about this story. Because he gets paid by the fucking same cartel leader. Let's just be honest about it. Okay? There's a reason why all those same dickhead media members, let's just be real about it. All those dickhead media members on that round table talking about, we're the real journalists. Oh, we're the real journalists. All you other weekend media members, you don't deserve to be at fights. Yet, they're out there groveling for access. They're out there being sponsored and working for the networks and working for the promoters and management companies that literally endorse fucking a cartel leader. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of you boxing fans that have to put up with our media, because our media is such dog shit in this industry. Okay, and like this case is so evident of it. Like, of course, you will never see this like on major UK YouTubers. There's a reason why like major outlets will just not cover this within our own industry, because they want the same access to all these people that have this direct relationship to this gang leader who's connected to over 18 murders alone in the span of 4 years. Okay, like, and again, like I don't know if people have realized this, people that listen to the show, but like I've been adding those same 4 dickhead media members on Twitter time and time and time again, asking them for a fucking public comment on this. Nothing. I go on their YouTube channels, I go on their websites. I search for content on this. I search for their opinion on this. Non-existent. Non-existent. Why? Because they're the real journalist. Fuck out of here.
I don't think they said that the real journalists, they did think they were more important, which was like comical. Nope. Like, did they?
Radar Rahim did say we're the real journalists when he literally worked for DAZN on the KSI Logan Paul card.
He did.
And said it was the fight that the boxing fans were asking for. Not the most. I forget the exact verbiage he used. But he made it out like we called for the fight. No, fuck out of here. Okay? You work with the same promoter, Eddie Hearn, that's out there chumming it up with this drug cartel leader. There's tons of pictures of Eddie and Daniel Kinahan together. You think Radar Rahim is ever going to ask Eddie Hearn on the record about their relationship? No.
Of course not. No. I've met Radio Rahim and I've met Michelle Joy Phelps. Like, they're cool people. I don't have a bad word to say about them, but they don't have you ever heard either one of them ever ask a hard-hitting question? No. Right? That's not what they do. Right? Okay. It's fine. They fluff up people. That's fine. But like, don't come out here and act like you're doing something, dangerous. Like you're going into the war zone in Beirut asking hard-hitting questions. Like, come on, stop. You ask fluff pieces. You ask fluff questions for fluff pieces on fighters that you like that give you access. Like, that's just what it is.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, that's 100% what it is. And on top of that, most of them get paid from the promoter or network directly. I mean, Marcus Vegas works for Fox.
Yeah.
Michelle Joy Phelps is constantly working with Eddie Hearn and DAZN. So is Radar Rahim. Kugan Cassius is literally connected to MTK Global, which was MGM Marbella, which was Daniel Kinahan's company. He's directly connected to the management and the advisor that is a drug cartel leader. Okay, like, come on, like we don't have to play stupid here. Okay, Al Capone didn't get caught till tax evasion. Yeah, who cares? Okay, it's pretty obvious who Daniel Kinahan is. If all these institutions are gunning after him and he has fled his country not only once but numerous times, he's fled Ireland numerous times. He's fled Spain numerous times. Okay, and he might have to flee fucking Dubai, for fuck's sake. Okay, imagine that. Imagine you are so detestable as a human being that the Middle East doesn't even want your shit right now.
That's my problem with you. If I said the name Paul Castellano, no one knows who that is. right? It's the guy John Gotti killed to be boss. You know who John Gotti is because he was this bigger, larger than life figure that drew way too much attention to what they were doing, right? And now that corruptness, all the 18 murders are all in public view. I feel like that might happen here. And I don't know if that's good or bad for boxing. It's either going to clean it up or it's going to destroy it. But you can't have a figure like this, a larger than life public figure who everyone knows, involved at this level. I mean,
yo, that sick fuck in the chat right now saying Mick Kinahan's presence adds an extra element to the weigh-in, Matt, when the Regency Hotel weigh-in is the thing that sparked this whole controversy. When a person was fucking killed at his weigh-in, fuck out of here. Yeah, you're blocked. I don't want to deal with you, fucking pig. Fuck out of here. Go. Sorry, Gary. I can't deal with that bullshit.
What I'm saying is Kinahan thing is going to bring attention to it, and it's going to, because you can't. I mean, it's not some unknown drug cartel leader who everyone knows who this is, right? It's like he can't go under the radar. He can't act like Tony Soprano. Oh, I'm just a sanitation worker. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Like everyone knows who he is. Like it's going to either blow up the corruptness in boxing, or it's just going to bring down boxing. If you can't have a figure like that involved, for long.
With especially one of the biggest fights that we're going to see.
If he was reading club shows, okay, maybe he could get away with it. But at this level, no, there's going to be too much attention, right? It's like the John Gotti effect. Now you've made it public. Now it's in front of all of us. Now we have to do something about it.
I think that's a great comparison because, like you said, it's now in front of us. He kind of was getting away with just the MTK being in the background. Let's be honest. Even with the name rechange from MGM Marabella to MTK Global, and him technically being disassociated from the company, but still be advisor to all the fighters within the company, whatever. That now that he has really brought the heat on himself, like it's just evident, like the wagons are being circled around him, and it's purely because he was the one fucking out there yelling. Let's just be honest about it. Maybe not him specifically, obviously, but guess what? When you work with all these people for the biggest fight, it's going to be talked about. And it's going to get slipped out there. Arum let it slip. Fury let it slip. Frank Warren let it slip. Eddie Hearn let it slip. Everyone's letting it slip. You're causing way too much attention to yourself. You're taking photos, doing photo ops with all these promoters, for fuck's sake. In your mansion. You can't be doing that. I don't know exactly. I don't know if I'm with you, Gary, on it being this huge event where it's going to either blow up boxing or change boxing. I just don't believe that. Maybe I'm just way too cynical at this point about that causing real effective systemic change in the sport. Because we're starting to get Middle Eastern fights with dictators. You know what I mean? Like we're still going to get Don King in the sport, for fuck's sake. I mean, Bob Arum, like the list, any sanctioning body. I mean, the sport is still so rotten to its fucking roots that, like, how does this really change anything? Yes, it's a very significant example or symptom of how fucked up this sport is. But is it this all-encompassing event? I don't know about that. I think it definitely will be one of those things where it either blows up this fight. I think that's possible. Where an AJ Fury fight gets blown up in terms of this deal because of Kinahan's connection. That's likely. MTK might be, one of those companies that in 2 or 3 years we don't see anymore because of this connection. That's possible. Certain things like that, I do think this is one of those like big events where it could change how a company is either structured or exists, whether certain fights get made. I do think that it's already affected the Irish scene to a large degree. But I don't think it's going to be all encompassing of the sport. Unfortunately, I wish, but I'm cynical here.
I wish Rob were here for this.
He would just be sitting there and not talking. And
I don't know nothing. Who? I never heard of him. Why is he important? I never heard of him.
And again, go read that the insider article from good old boy Alan Dawson. That was a really good piece. And again, all encompassing. Like it's one of those where I came with it thinking I know everything about this subject and I'm good. Like not that I'm good, like, oh, I'm happy now, but like I understand it now in its entirety. I can now have this debate and discussion. It's a great piece. But again, it doesn't matter because MTK announced their next show in Kazakhstan for fuck's sake. And IFL is going to show it and ESPN is going to show it. So, woohoo. Let's move on, though. Shakur Stevenson, who fought this last weekend, and we're going to talk about his viewership in a second. He's calling out Leo Santa Cruz right now. Gary, thoughts on this?
So I guess this is a stay, right? He's staying at 130.
Looks like it.
Yeah. Okay. Which is good. There's good fights for him on the top ranks. I mean, we're not going to get the Warrington fight, which is what we all wanted, or at least not immediately. But there's plenty of good fights with him. The Santa Cruz fight would be a amazing contrast of styles. They refused to make Gary Russell Jr. versus Santa Cruz for all those years. I don't honestly. I hope it's an amazing fight. I don't think it's realistic that they're going to put him in. They're going to put Santa Cruz in with Shakur. I love the call out. I like the. I think more realistically, Shakur fights one of the top ranked guys, either Jamel Herring or Burchell. But this is a great fight. If I could make any fight at 130, it'd be this one. That's a great fight.
It is a good fight. I don't know if it's the fight I would make. The fight I would make would be Leo Santa Cruz versus Miguel Burchell, but that's never going to happen. Let's just be honest. That fight in LA would be amazing. Just not going to happen, unfortunately. I do think it's just a sort of a coronavirus call out, to be honest. We have Gervonta Davis still, I think, probably going to get the fight with Leo Santa Cruz. Shakur Stevenson has yet to fight anyone of note, let alone a potential Hall of Famer like Leo Santa Cruz. So I just don't see that happening. You know, him going from who did he fight this week? I forgot who he even fought.
Felix Caraballo.
Felix, go to boy Felix, homie. Yeah, you don't go from Felix to Leo Santa Cruz.
That Felix fight was so bad. Like, that was so bad. Like, I knew we were going to have one-sided tune-ups, but that was, again, he gets much better work in the gym. That was silly.
He knocked him down the first round, and then he just coasted for the next 4 rounds because he was like, damn, I have to get some rounds in.
Felix was tough, though. I mean, he took so many shots, like, on the button. Good, tough guy. Good sparring partner. I just wish the sparring partner had a little more skill.
But that card, by the way, did a average of 397,000 views. The peak was 608,000 views. Let me
ask you a weird question, right? If you were getting ready for sparring for Burchell, let's say, like a seek and destroy guy like that, wouldn't you want a little bit better sparring partner than Felix?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? You need a little tougher work than that to get ready for the top guys.
The sad part is, to be quite honest, a lot of the top guys don't spar top guys. That is quite uncommon, to be honest. At least from my experience. I know I've seen Keith Thurman in his gym with his sparring partners for a Danny Garcia fight. I would say the sparring partner, the most note he had was Kendall Holt. You know, Kendall's not bad, but it's still just Kendall Holt.
Kendall Holt could crack. All right, I don't care what y'all say. I like Kendall Holt. I'm not saying he's the fourth greatest fighter. Kendall Holt could crack.
But just look at the disparity of talent from a Danny Garcia to Kendall Holt at that time, especially Kendall Holt 2016, for fuck's sake, right? This wasn't like it was a prime Kendall Holt in 2011, right? Really slugging it out. And I think the best guy I've seen Wilder spar, Malik Scott, maybe. He sparred Malik Scott a few times. I know he has sparred people like Jerome Miller when Jerome Miller was coming up, but I never seen those sessions. Again, he's no one of note. Big Zoe was a guy that he sparred, and he should not have been sparring. So this is quite common, unfortunately. Only in super gyms, when we talk about Eddie Reneso, you're gonna see some of those guys spar each other. Even though they may not be the same size, you're going to see that. You're going to see an Oscar Valdez and a Ryan Garcia spar in that gym, guaranteed. Because those guys are close enough in the weight class and they're in the same gym. when I was when Manny Robles had his big stable of Valdez, Magdaleno, Conlon, I saw all those guys spar. But that was because they're all in the same gym together. If you're not in the same gym together, you don't call on those other big names or top 10, 15 guys to come spar with you. That just doesn't happen. The Jesse Magdaleno fight, speaking of him, averaged 311,000 viewers. I think the peak was just under 400,000. Doesn't say it here, but it still wasn't high. Let's be honest about it.
A peak of under 400?
Yes. Yeah, the peak was 392,000. Sorry. It was a 22% dip from the viewership of Tuesday, right? Because the Shakur fight was on Tuesday. Not good. I did see Evan Murkowski over at Fitzgerald's podcast say that both shows were the highest rated ESPN telecasts of the day. And I get how that is a life saver for these cards and their viewership. I get the argument there, but that's more of an indictment on how no one is paying attention to sports right now. Like everyone's just mentally checked out of sports. So even though that these were the highest telecast, allegedly highest telecast shows of the day for ESPN, respectively, that's more of an indictment on ESPN and how far their viewership has dipped. Let's be honest. Than anything, that's not a sign that these cards were actually viewed by a lot of people. No one's watching sports. That's what's more of a sign of. Gary, any more thoughts on these individual cards per se and their viewership?
I mean,
I do have a comment from Dana White if we want to get to that about the viewership of these cards. I'll get to that.
Let's get to that.
Dana White slams top rank ratings. Good job, Aram, you dickhead, is the headline of this article. I'm not going to read all of this quote, but I will say this. For those that have not been watching, because this is a boxing show, so maybe you haven't, Dana White has been on basically a lot of the mainstream sports outlets and being interviewed, and he is having temper tantrums all the time when they ask uninformed questions about fighter pay, and it's hilarious. Just want to point that out. If you haven't seen the Dan Le Batard, or I think it was it First Take? I don't think it was First Take, but definitely with the Dan Le Batard. Check out that interview with Dana White. Find on YouTube. It was fantastic. And I mean, again, the questions were so innocuous of like, do you think your fighters are underpaid? Like that was a question that Dana White flipped out on. A open-ended, like, do you think this kind of question? No, hey, your fighters are paid 20% of the revenue you guys generate. That is 30% lower than the average of mainstream sports. Do you have an answer to that? No, nothing like that. No, how do you feel? Do you think this is okay? And he flips out. Hilarious.
Yeah, it's like that's the worst. Ask the question to get the answer that you want. Do you think your fighters are underpaid? No. Oh, okay. All right. Your fighters are paid 20% of the revenue. Basketball players, which are non-contact sport, non-injuries, high injury sport, non-threatening sport, get 51%. How would you respond to why your fighters are paid so low? Right? Like you took the question away. Is it? Of course it is. We all know it is. Right? They're paid literally a fraction of what every other sport is paid. Even baseball, which gives more power to the union so they get paid less up front. Right? Like the MLB players are not negotiating. They're getting paid. Like the owners are trying to negotiate with them. They're like, no, we took less money up front, so we get paid now. They get paid 40-something%. Right? So like 43 or 40. It's in the 40s. Like that's still double.
Plus league minimums are just a totally different thing that aren't even a thing in the UFC.
Yeah, what's the league minimum in baseball? 400,000, 300,000? You know what I'm saying? Like
you're good. You're in the top 20% bracket already.
2%. Like 400,000 puts you 2%. Yeah.
It's you're good, man.
As a league minimum, right?
You're making fucking 8 and 8 as a UFC fighter. 8,000 to show up, 8,000 if you win as a bonus. Yeah. Is
that really what they get at the undercard fights? That's what they're getting paid?
They might have bumped the minimum to like 16. But I think there's I could be wrong about that. But I remember 8 and 8 was common, 4 and 4 used to be common. That's common in boxing still, obviously. People getting paid 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 on these undercards. I mean, that happened on these undercards.
Yeah.
The difference is that the top, 1% in the UFC and MMA, they don't get paid jack shit comparative to everyone else.
Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, yeah.
But digress. I just want to point out Dana White. He's a man child, and he can't take softball questions. Just want to point that out.
But why are they? Because it's ESPN. I get it, but
it's not necessarily that. I think it's more about mainstream. Let's be honest here. If you weren't with me, would you know that statistic about UFC fighter pay being like 15 to 20% of the revenue?
No, but let me answer the rest of that. If it were my job and I was going on national television to get answers, I would do my homework, right? Yeah.
Oh, great point. I can't rebut that. That was great.
I'm going to tell a quick story. I was, and this is right before the housing crash, right? When all stocks were going crazy, right? It was a Friday afternoon, and I'm like, just give me a stock. I'm going to call up someone. I'm going to sell it. Just give me the name and tell me what it does, right? So they give me a stock. But I don't want to hear the earnings. I don't want to what it trades to the value. Just give me the stock and tell me what it does. Okay. So I get on the phone and I'm pitching this guy, right? And I'm like, it trades at 10 times earnings. It's up 20% quarter over quarter, and it's a target price of 36, right? He's like, it's got negative earnings. Like the guy on the phone is like, no, it doesn't. It has negative earnings. It has a negative balance sheet. I'm like, yeah, no, I gotta go, right? Because I legally, I may have broken the law there, right? I just got the one guy who was sitting at Yahoo Finance, and he actually pulled it up when I was pitching him, right?
He was ready, man.
I'm like, I gotta go, right?
No, I agree with the point.
Don't do that, right? If you're gonna have someone on, prepare yourself for what you're gonna have. Don't embarrass yourself.
I agree with you 100%. And these ESPN reporters are paid so much that they should be able to do this. Their producers are paid enough that they should be able to find, John Nash's articles detailing all of this. All of the class action lawsuit information that's come out, right? Like they should. No, you're right. I was gonna give them some, it's they're mainstream reporters. Mainstream reporters don't know jack shit about MMA or boxing. Like they never ask good questions. I was going to do that, but you're right. They get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be at ESPN. They should be able to fucking ask simple questions like that. But it's ESPN. Maybe that's more of the factor. You might be right about that. Moving on though, Regis Prograis and Maurice Hooker are probably not fighting guys. Just wanted to let you guys know. However, per Mike Coppinger and his sources, Chris Algieri has been offered to fight with Prograis on DAZN this summer. Prograis was also offered an ESPN headline slot this summer as well against an opponent that was unnamed. Gary, thoughts on Regis Prograis' next move? Should he take a Chris Algieri fight on DAZN or fight against fighter B or fighter X on ESPN?
He should fight Maurice Hooker.
That's not happening. And over 1 pound, by the way, guys. Just want to point that out.
Look, it's happening. All right. Let's play the situation in which 1 pound, Matt. So just take it at 143 and come in at 140. Was it 144 or 145 Hooker wanted? Whatever. Just come in half a pound over. Who cares? Like, they're not going to cancel that fight the day before the fight over half a pound. Just come in half a pound under and meet in the middle. Half a pound over and come in the middle. You lose a little money, but you still get the fight. Algieri has that for a guy who's not that good. Algieri's had some big money fights, hasn't he?
Yeah, the Pacquiao fight.
Pacquiao, then he had Khan, he had Spence. It's like he's made some money. Good for him. Good for him. He gets beat up. He's a tough guy.
He's a nice guy too.
He is.
He's a very, very nice and pleasant guy to talk to. And I will say this, that Provodnikov fight will still be one of my favorite fights to go back and watch. That's a guilty pleasure fight. That is a perfect contrasting styles within a fight. And I love it. And I also think Algieri outbox him beautifully.
Algieri he's loyal to DeGuardia because he still has that co-promotional deal. DeGuardia brought him back. And Joe DeGuardia, shout out to him. That's my boy. We speak Italian to each other.
So not surprising. Who do you think the ESPN fight would be?
The 140-pound version of Felix Caraballo?
Really? Oh, okay.
I mean, give me 140-pound Felix Caraballo.
Oh, then I'll take Chris Algieri for sure.
Yeah, Algieri's a tough guy. He'll last.
If it's like a Jose Ramirez out of the blue and they pull that one off, I'd be like, okay, whoa. Was not expecting this. Kind of don't want it, but I'll take it.
You think the Hooker fight is dead?
Yes.
Do
I
you?
don't think Hooker wants it.
So you blame Hooker for it?
Yes.
Okay. I think it'll get made at 144 or something. It'll get made. I'm confident both guys want those fights. They're just. I think Hooker is done with 140. I don't think he can make it healthy anymore. Right. So I mean, I don't see the point of him going back down there. Even if he killed himself to make 140, he's not going to be 100%, and he can't stay there and fight for a title afterwards. So
quickly, this is important from Dan Rayfield concerning this topic. Thank you, Rob. Shout out to you, Rob. And I just saw on the actual live chat, so thank you. That actually helped a lot. Dan Rayfield saying, told by promoters Lou DiBella, who reps Prograis, and Dino Duva, who co-promotes Hooker with Eddie Hearn, that besides weight issue, Eddie was seeking to reduce the purse since he has no site fee or spectators now for the fight. I like how Dan Rayfield puts in parentheses, understandable. God, you fucking bootlicking piece of shit. And both sides are just moving on. So it's not just 1 pound. It is also a money issue. And that makes a lot more sense than the 1 pound. That is Eddie Hearn saying, hey, guys, I'm not going to pay you as much. And they're going, fuck yeah, you are. Right now, we might be the best headline that you're going to get this entire summer. And it's during a pandemic. Hazard pay, motherfucker. Like, I'm siding with the fighters here 100%. Like, especially if they just want what their contracted amount is asking for or demanding, what they're like obligated for, to get owed, then yeah, Eddie Hearn coming in here and trying to undercut that is bullshit. And I'm not surprised promoters are doing that, to be honest. I'm surprised we're not hearing more of that, actually, to be honest. I expect to hear more of these stories when it comes to big fights, because the promoters don't want to pay the big fights big money during this time because they can't get a site fee. And these big guys actually have some leverage and they can just say, fuck you, and just sit out. So that's going to happen a lot more, in my opinion.
Yeah. And look, the money, Eddie's going to have to find the money or make another fight, but no, he's going to have to find the money because this is it. Like, if you want people, he's got to make the fight. There's no other fight that he can reasonably make that's going to have this kind of attraction this summer. So, Eddie, you got to write a bigger check. That's it. They're not taking short pay, and you're not in a position to where you can demand them to because you don't have any other plan B. So, make it.
Yeah, I kind of largely agree. And plus, like, if you're to zone here, you've cut off a huge portion of their staff, right? Their entire global plans for this year have been failing. You kind of need anything you can get right now, I'm assuming. Right? If you're to zone?
Yeah.
Why would the zone not want to pay these guys their base pay? Like, I don't get that.
I don't understand what Eddie's doing here. Has Eddie fallen on tougher times?
No, there's no way. At least, look, they could have the worst year of their company history this year, and they're still good. Looking at last year's financial records, they're good. They're healthy. Now, Frank Warren, on the other hand, like, he's already been hurting like a motherfucker, so that's a different story. But no, I think Eddie Hearn, Matchroom, they're fine. I think DAZN's hurting. This is to me, this is a DAZN issue, and Eddie is the middleman from DAZN. Actually, let's just be honest about it. And these types of negotiations, Eddie Hearn is working on behalf of the network. That's how it has always been. So DAZN going broke, looking for buyers, looking for that investment again, looking for anything, any sort of help. Yeah, they're gonna come back to these fighters, and let's be honest, it is Prograis and Hooker, guys that aren't necessarily draws, and they're telling them, yeah, you're gonna take less money. And that's wrong, but I'm not surprised that DAZN is doing it.
Do you think there's an A side, B side in this fight, or is it just like Prograis, Hooker, Prograis? They're both equal drawing power.
Probably equal. I don't think either is that big of a draw.
Yeah.
Like, Prograis has always been a little bit of a disappointing draw. I've always thought he could be like a little bit of a B-level star.
He's not.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not.
he's a hardcore's darling. Like we as hardcores love him, but outside of that, I mean, he's not.
And it's crazy because he's connected to Peter Berg and Mark Wahlberg and like that whole management company, and he can't get like any shine. You don't see him on any like mainstream like talk shows ever, and he's fucking connected to one of the biggest Hollywood stars in the last 20 years. Just weird, just odd. But digressing, speaking of main events that may or may not be happening in this summer, this one is happening apparently. Thomas Dolomieu Jamal James is to headline the Fox telecast on July 25th. It's going to be happening in the Los Angeles area in a studio. So I don't think I'll be going, but it'll be in my city. And this point in time, this is probably the best fight we're going to get this summer so far. And that is really sad. This is a decent fight. Shouldn't be a Fox main event, in my opinion, but it's a decent fight. I think it would be a great co-main event on Fox, or a great FS1 main event, or a great pay-per-view, like, opener. But Fox main event, not the greatest. But then again, it's still also the best fight we've seen on the schedule and the docket right now.
It's decent. It's like Broner versus Vargas. It's like, but Broner had star appeal, but it's okay. I mean, it's a good fight. We don't know who's going to win. We know that it should be competitive and close. But there's no star power in it. It's not really mark your calendar type stuff. But it's a decent fight for what it is. Who would you pick in that fight? Who would you lean towards?
Jamal James, but Thomas Dolomieu is that perfect gatekeeper, man. He really is. He gives everyone a tough fight. Like, he doesn't look bad ever, in my opinion. But he's clearly a number 18 guy in the division.
I was going to say 15, but yeah, somewhere in that range. I mean, he's a good fighter. He's decent.
If you beat him, you belong in the top 15.
Mm-hmm.
If Jamal James beats him, I expect him to get a big fight next. If that's Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, somebody of that caliber, Keith Thurman, whenever he heals up and loses the weight, I could see that. Jamal James is big, talented enough, has good enough power. But Dolomieu has played spoiler before, has just made guys look suspect. So I would not be surprised if Dolomieu came in here and put on a performance and won a decision. That's not unlikely, in my opinion. Who are you picking? Jamal James?
I want to say James, but boy, this is close. I don't know. Like, I'll say James with about 51% confidence. Like, just ever so close. Dolomieu's tough. Dolomieu's got some skills. Dolomieu could do enough to win rounds. Like, can he win enough rounds? Maybe. I don't see this fight ending in knockout either way. This is going the distance. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Gary, we got to move on because we have breaking news on this topic. I already got it, Rob. Trust me. Trust me. Don't worry. I saw it. This is a two-part topic, part of it including Virgil Ortiz. So I know we can stop this topic to start this one. Oscar De La Hoya coming out on Twitter and saying, due to team Ryan Garcia's decision not to accept a July 4th bout, we will now return in late July with the future of boxing, Virgil Ortiz. More exciting details to follow. And guess who responded? Ryan Garcia. So good. I gotta get the sound bites ready. Ryan Garcia responds, you do realize you're supposed to be my promoter, not hater, right? Rob, please keep us informed as much as possible with this ongoing developing story here. Gary, thoughts on, we were talking about, I think it was the last show. It was the last show about Ryan Garcia not taking the July 4th fight, all that stuff. And who was at fault here? Was it DAZN who we critiqued? Was it the Golden Boy relationship that we know has been having issues? It's pretty clear it's the Golden Boy issue. And maybe a little bit of the whole Eddie Hearn in between of DAZN and working on behalf of the network. Oscar is clearly working on behalf of the network, meaning DAZN, and shitting on his fighter right here for some reason. Very, very odd. I know you're going to want to talk about Virgil Ortiz as well, but let's first talk about Ryan Garcia and this aspect of it. Thoughts.
When you just read what Golden was it De La Hoya or Golden Boy's account that tweeted that? It was Oscar that tweeted that?
It was Oscar's personal Twitter account.
When you read that, I was saying the same thing Garcia said. It's like, why would you say that? Like, frame it better than that because of difficulties or an inability, whatever. That fight can't happen at this time. We're looking to have him fight later in the summer. Just leave it at that. That came out. It's like I would Ryan Garcia. Why would you say that? Why would you frame it like that? Is he trying? I know he's trying to chase off Canelo. Is he trying to chase off Ryan Garcia too? Like, who frames something like that? Like, he's the worst salesman in the world. Like, just say, please don't buy any of my product. I don't like. I have no idea why your promoter would frame it like. You know what I'm saying? Like you're like poisoning the well by framing it like that. You're trying to make him look bad, just like you tried to make him look bad when he said he wouldn't fight. What was the Filipino Duno? Right? He doesn't want to fight him. It's like
he literally called him scared. He literally said he was scared to take that fight.
But you're already not on speaking terms. You only speak to your biggest star, the biggest star in the sport, through lawyers. Are you trying to do that with your second biggest star? I don't understand like why anyone would frame something like that. Like that's not. Do you think it was an accident, or do you think he's got an axe to grind with Ryan Garcia? Because it's like this is happening too often now.
Yeah, trigger fingers turn to Twitter fingers.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oscar De La Hoya retweeted a Rick Glaser tweet. You know me and my opinions about Rick Glaser. I think he's a literal fungus in this sport. Okay?
Not even a troll, a fungus.
No, he's a fucking fungus. He looks like a fucking fungus, man. Let's be honest. If you work for Don King, you're automatically despicable as a human being, and I have no respect for you at all. You're worse than slime. But Rick Glaser tweeting hashtag Ryan Garcia getting bad advice 2 fights ago said, I signed a new deal with Oscar that's richest ever for a guy on my level. Now 2 fights later, he's saying it's a bad deal and now refusing to fight. He's not taking into account no crowds and added COVID testing. Bad advice. Yo, it's going to get nasty between that entire team.
Yeah, the extra cost that Golden Boy has to go through. If I'm Ryan Garcia, I say that sounds like a you problem.
You're still selling the entire on me. Like, the great part for Ryan Garcia is that he is truly kind of a self-made star to his degree. Like Oscar did not make Ryan Garcia. So Ryan Garcia can do this. He has the drawing power. Even at this point in time, they'd be like, fuck you. Like, you're being a bad promoter. I'm going to be very public about you being a bad promoter. And guess what? I, at this point in time, have more people on my side than you. And like, even though like I will agree to a slight degree that the optics of, hey, I signed the biggest deal in prospect history and then complain about money is bad, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, to be honest. Like if he has good management, which I assume he does, then they can negotiate around that fucking stance easy. You're looking at the market landscape and who else is getting paid at your level. On top of that, you're looking at your drawing power, and you can make an argument you should get paid more. And on top of that, the reasons why Rick Glaser and by de facto Oscars are saying that why Ryan should not get paid more is because of COVID testing. Guess what? That is a direct reason why Ryan Garcia should get paid more. It's called fucking hazard pay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Making a fight during a global pandemic, or not making a fight, but you're wanting him to fight during a global pandemic where it can risk his life, his kid's life, his family's life. Yeah, and you're saying that that's the reason why you should not pay him more? No, that's the reason why you should pay him more, actually. Sorry. And guess what? COVID testing, that's the cost of doing business right now. Tough shit.
That sounds like an Oscar problem, huh?
Tough shit, man.
All right. Yeah. Looks like that's going to eat into your profit a little bit, not my check. You know,
I don't know how. I don't know what Ryan Garcia does here long term, because I don't know how long his contract is in place. Like, I don't know if he should do the route of just going for a full lawsuit and doing like a 2-year out of the sport, like Mikey did, like Andre Ward did, and just doing that. Like, that's possible. And he's young enough where he could maybe do that.
Yeah, he's with Reynoso. Bring in some big, tough Mexican fighters who've had 200 fights in Mexico and let him battle those guys out every couple of months. You know, it'd be better. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he has to go into isolation. You know, let him go down to Reynoso's gym and fight some. Get some gym wars for the next 2 years.
I don't know if he does that. I don't know if.
No,
that's a big risk. It is. Like, I think it did affect Andre Ward's career. I do think it affected Mike Garcia's career for at least a bit of time until he was able to get back on sort of like the star power wagon, so to speak. It's tough when you lose that momentum. It's tough to gain it back. However, like I said earlier, it's Ryan Garcia. He's a self-made star. He's a social media star as well, so he can still sort of foster a fan base and keep that fan base potentially in a 2-year sort of legal battle or 3-year legal battle. And again, he's young enough to where if he comes back, he's still 28, 27 years old. So he could have a decade of a career plus in front of him. And maybe that's a good thing to take a couple years off to train in that camp and that system for a while.
That was what I'm saying. When Ward and Mikey did it, they were in the middle of their prime. They were taking years of their prime off. Ryan's not in his prime yet, right? Yeah. So it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not the same thing. Like, he's young enough where he comes back, he's still really young. Where he comes back now, he's still maybe just entering his prime. So, like, he's in a better position to do it, and he's got the looks and the Hollywood charm to make money outside of the ring, because unlike Tank Davis, he doesn't hit women.
I was going to say a word to add to it, but it would be slightly more offensive, so I just won't do it. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Damn, I'm really curious to see what happens here. I want Oscar to reply so bad. I'm so petty, guys. I'm so awful. But digressing, let's move on, guys. Let's see where we're at here. Oh, we're at Oscar Valdez. I think we're talking about him earlier in the show. He is multiple sources, right? Steve Kim saying that Oscar Valdez will be fighting Jason Velez in his next outing.
This is what I was expecting. These were the fights I was expecting. They really are. I think we used his name as a hypothetical, irrelevant guy at 138 or 135 who may fight on these ESPN cards. Like, yeah, the Jason Velez's of the world were Orlando Cruz, like those type guys.
Yeah. I'm totally not shocked by this news at all. That they're talking about, Bichel Valdez later this year, but right now, Velez. Guess what? We're never going to get Bichel Valdez. That's never happening, guys. Just going to point that out right now. We're never getting that fight. And just sort of we can run through the rest of these topics. Michaela Mayer tested negative for coronavirus after she tested positive earlier in the weekend. She was taken off the card so she can return to the ring. There was this wild story. I don't know if you want to touch on this about U.S. Olympian boxer Regina Fuchs.
I didn't want to mispronounce it, so I don't know.
We'll call her,
mispronounced it, yeah.
Verge over here. Verge tested positive for 2 substances. We don't know what the substances are or the levels. Oh, here we go. Oh, actually, we do have the levels now. Positive for Ledzerol metabolite, as well as a GW1516 metabolite. I'm going to have to research some of those and what they do. But anyways, she has not been suspended due to USADA saying and determining the violation was caused by a transmission during unprotected sex. These contamination stories are getting wilder and wilder. And guess what? I don't not believe it. I don't. Like, with the way the testing is now, every one of the heads here of USADA, VADA, they will say on record, you can catch something and have PEDs in your system from the tap water. So I'm not surprised that unprotected sex led to this. It's just fucking wild. And God, what was the threshold they were testing for? Let's be honest.
I don't think that's proper social distancing.
It's definitely not unless they're wearing masks. and hand sanitizer after. I don't know if you want to touch on that story, but yeah, that's a crazy story. I have real no take on it other than fuck, man. Crazy. This is why I don't like care about drug regulation when it comes to sports, because it's stories like this. They're too crazy. Like, this can't be real. We can't really care about this shit. Just let them use. It doesn't matter anymore. If you can have sex and pop for steroids, I'm sorry. Like, you have to just take away the whole system now. It's not reliable.
So that means whoever she was getting it in with was on that steroid.
Yeah, he was taking supplements that they proved the supplements that he was taking were tainted or contaminated. I should say. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fucking wild. I know. I know, man. I know. Moving on, because there's no long in-depth take there. Let's just be honest about that one. Steve Kim was the first to report this, that Oscar Negrete, due to an eye injury, was ruled out of his fight. I think it was next week with Jason Maloney. That's turned out to be true, and now Jason Maloney is due to fight Leonardo Baez. Right, Jake Donovan over at Boxing Scene. So that's the fight we're getting over on ESPN as a main event. Yay. And speaking of just fighters pulling out of stuff, we had Chris Zavala pull from a fight with Eddie Vasquez due to a positive COVID test as well. So not too shocking there, guys.
Give a shout out to my boy Eddie Vasquez, good friend of mine from Fort Worth, Texas. 7-0. He was going to win that fight too. Vasquez was definitely going to win that fight. But Zavala popped.
And
he popped. He tested positive for COVID.
I have not seen this as well, but I heard good things about it. The Ringside documentary that aired on Showtime, which covered Kenneth Sims Jr. and Destin Butler Jr., I heard was very good. I have not seen it. Gary, did you?
No, I didn't even know it aired yet. Okay.
Yeah, it aired this last Saturday. It's just a 90-minute documentary. You can obviously watch on anytime, Showtime anytime. I'm probably going to watch it sometime this week, because I remember like Kenneth Sims Jr. Like, I remember,
yeah,
it all went down, to be honest. So it's going to be great, this documentary and to see it from their perspective and everything. But Gary, that's it for the show, man. Any other thoughts? Any other topics you want to get to before we wrap up?
Also, Ezekiel Elliott popped. I keep saying like he popped for coronavirus. He can't play because he popped for coronavirus. Ezekiel Elliott tested positive for coronavirus. I didn't do a baseball reference today either. So Ranger game is canceled again today. No Ranger game today. We may not even get a baseball season this year.
I'm telling you.
That's fine with that. Whatever.
I will not be surprised to see certain seasons just have an asterisk on them and just be moved on. Like the NBA saying we're going to come back and still just continue the season. Man, let's see. The
NBA, their rules for the returning play were so weird it made no sense. Like, you could play, but then you have to sit 10 feet off the bench. It's like,
yeah.
I can get up on you, I can get in your grill, I can guard you, I can sweat on you, I can sneeze on you, but then when I'm out of the game, then I need to sit 10 feet away. It's like, guys. All right.
Oh, hold on, I froze up. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. You're not moving, but we can hear you.
I'm gonna refresh really fast.
Yeah, so another good show today. Hopefully we get these little kinks, these little problems fixed. But yeah, Ezekiel Elliott tested positive for coronavirus and possibly no baseball season. Great show today. Don't know when we'll be back, but Josh Greer fights tomorrow.
Quickly, Liam Roskell, a longtime listener, saying no, Horn, Zoo, chat. I think we mentioned that last show in brief discussion, maybe just brief passing. I know that fight it's basically been rescheduled for later this summer. I want to say it's when it was rescheduled for. I just want to wait on that one. I wait when I feel like that one's officially going to go off and happen, even though I think it will, for us to discuss it. Because it's so hard to talk about fights like 3 or 4 months down the line, to be honest. It just fundamentally, I don't think we should be in the same way that we used to, because who knows what happens. But sorry, back to your outro there, Gary.
Are you at all interested in the Josh Greer fight, or is this not moving the needle for you? No. All right. Josh Greer fight.
Who's he fighting again?
His the guy that lost to his Uber driver.
Quickly, when is the fight?
Tuesday.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch it.
You gotta watch it. We gotta watch it so they don't have to. See what you see what me and Matt are willing to do. We're gonna watch it.
I'm not willing to do it, guys. Listeners,
I don't have to.
No, just not willing to do it. Look, when we said we want boxing back, we meant good boxing. But as I said on last week's show or show whenever we did it, this is not a pandemic exclusive issue. Like, we've had bad boxing, predominantly speaking, for most of the content we watch. It just so happens now we only get like 2 or 3 cards a week instead of like 6 cards on every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't see the one good card out of 6 or 7 or 8 that we see. It's just we've only had 2 or 3 and they've all been shit, and that's kind of how it goes. It's not this is not the new normal. It just is normal.
With all the streaming that we had, before all this, with fights on every streaming service, I was watching like 15 fights a weekend. Like it was a lot. And now we're getting just this. And Josh Greer is going to look spectacular because against bad competition, Josh Greer looks phenomenal. It's when he steps up, it starts to catch up to him. But follow me on all forms of social media, 3D Boxing, 3D Boxing blog, from Texas to the world. Thank you, and God bless.
Obviously, guys, stay safe out there. I know the world's crazy. If you're out there protesting, do it. Fuck the police. Fuck 12, ACAB, all that shit. Black Lives Matter. We know what it is up in here. Again, be safe. We've had some crazy stuff happen in my state recently with people being lynched. So just be safe. Be seriously safe out there. That's all I'm going to say. Not to get serious, but just because we have to every once in a while. Especially on the outros, we have to get serious. Find me, Matt Hunter. I'm still on all social media platforms where I'm raging against the machine right now. And that was a pun. Shout out to all the people that love Rage Against the Machine that never realized that it was like what the band was about. I love that. I think that's hilarious that you have like the Ted Cruzes of the world saying that they're not going to listen to Rage Against the Machine anymore. And it's like, dude, you're Ted Cruz.
Sometimes you just have to get past if they're political. I mean, Rage Against the Machine, it's one of the best bands ever. If you don't like their political positions, that's fine. Like, you still have to recognize that
that's not the issue. It's that people have just now all of a sudden realized that they are political.
Really?
They were political. Obviously, when they came out in the 90s, what the fuck are you talking about? Like that's the crazy part. People out there, if they can't get over a band being political, that's fine. Like I can't always listen to Anti-Flag or like System of a Down. So I'm not in the mood for it. I understand. But those people that are like, oh my God, this political band is political now? No idea. Crazy. Since I with a super chat again saying no, boxing is back. Hashtag if the fights are going to be as poor. I absolutely agree. Scott Brown saying he saw Rage Against the Machine with Beastie Boys. And Scott Brown, I will say, fuck you. I'm jealous. And guys, have a great day, great evening, great night, wherever you are. And like I said, stay safe out there and keep protesting. Have a great day, great evening, great night. Peace.